So I want to ask you a real question. How many cycles of failed relationships have you been through? Think about it. Yup, I'm waiting. According to a study, over 64% of Americans have gone through the breakup of a long-term relationship, and another study on relationship breakup statistics says it takes an average about 3 months to get over a breakup. While I love to say that I've gotten completely over my previous relationship, the truth is I haven't. Let me explain. Sure, on one hand, I don't think, idolize, or obsess over my girlfriend when I was 17 and how she broke my heart. And I've definitely dated other people since that time. I'm actually 33, and I would hope that would be the case too. But it wasn't until kind of like the recent turmoil of failed relationships that really got to me. It didn't quite hit me at first, but I realized the emotional beliefs I built up over the 15 plus years through my cycles of failed relationships and breakups were really starting to get at me. And at some point, I was really getting sick and tired of the cycle. You know, when you get to know someone, you get really close to someone, you start dating, and then it just doesn't work out for one reason or the other, and it's tiring. And so back in March, a really close friend at the time, she asked me to fill in the blanks with these first thoughts that came to mind. And these answers were super interesting and gave me an insight about how I actually viewed relationships and how I view someone when I receive love and give love as well. Take a look. She asked me, when I love people, they blank. When I let people love me, they blank. You wanna know my answers? They were, when I love people, they don't love me back. When I let people love me, they end up hurting and leaving me. No lie, that's actually how I responded while I was laughing at my depressing answers. Hey, at least I'm self-aware, right? My friend's answer was very similar. Her answer was, when I love people, they hurt, lie to me, and leave me. And her second answer was, when I let people love me, I feel the looming possibility of feeling suffocated and trapped in the future. What a grim outlook, right? After we laughed our ass off about our depressing answers and cried about how hopeless we were, I started thinking, how long have I felt this way for? And the real answer is ever since I can remember. I still remember how I felt when I felt discarded after my first girlfriend because she dated me not because she liked me, but she told me because she pitied me and felt bad for me. I still remember feeling unloved when I found out I was cheated on by my first real girlfriend. I still remember all the relationships where I felt so hopeless trying to save a relationship, but knew there was nothing I could do because the other person didn't want to pursue it anymore, didn't want to put in the work. And this actually happened with my previous relationship too. And by the way, I don't blame my former partners for doing what they did, the decisions that they made. It wasn't their fault. Especially with the earlier relationships, we were young. Maybe they were going through their own thing and reacted in a certain way that they felt like was best for them. You can never blame someone for that. And I really do believe that people are trying to do the best that they can in their given situation. Regardless though, my younger past versions of myself, these younger versions of Kevin, felt and held these emotions even years later after that situation. And so when I entered new relationships, I would hold beliefs like, when I love people, they don't love me back. Or when I let people love me, they hurt and leave me. And my relationships, as a result of those beliefs, they would ultimately fail. The crazy thing is, I would float from one extreme to another extreme. Sometimes I would suffer through the disease of sacrificing my needs, my self-worth, just to save the relationship. Or I became emotionally unavailable because I didn't want to get hurt. I ultimately became avoidant of emotional affection, especially with my last relationship with my ex. My friend Joe, he always calls it being a Captain Save-A-Ho, and I was definitely guilty of this, especially when I was younger. In Robert Glover's book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, he calls this nice guy syndrome. And we'll definitely dive into that later, but of course, my nice guy syndrome isn't as bad as my 17-year-old self. It's obviously gotten better over the years. And age actually does that to you. It matures you. But from time to time, it would really come out. And it really made me think, who would want to be with a partner who wasn't emotionally there? Who would want to be with a partner who's a complete pushover and doesn't see their own value within themselves? In other words, my self-limiting beliefs were sabotaging my relationships, and something really had to change. And of course, when I was 20 years old, I read the classic pickup artist books like The Game, The Mystery Method, and watched all these like the pickup artist shows on VH1. And then in my mid-20s, I went down the road of MGTOW, Red Pill, even before kind of Reddit existed and these communities formed. After having my heart shattered because I was dating this girl that I wanted to marry at like 21 years old, I basically stayed away from relationships for at least 10 years of my life just to focus on my career and my business and myself. But I still felt empty. I still felt empty inside from not listening to my emotions. And I knew that there was this gap that I was just avoiding over and over and over again. The really difficult part about this, especially being an Asian male, is that a lot of us, we don't have really positive role models to go off from. It wasn't like I could talk to my father about my relationships, or I didn't really have strong men around me as well that I felt comfortable talking about these issues with. So me being me, I followed the classic bro advice, getting under someone. It kind of looks something like this. Hey Kevin, what's going on? You look kind of down. You don't look too hot. What's up? Man, I'm actually really depressed. The other day my girlfriend broke up with me. I mean, how do you get over it? Bro, I'm so sorry to hear that. But you know what they say. The quickest way to get over someone is to get under someone. Oh, really? Hey, what's up? Do you mind if I get mounted? I'm trying to get over this breakup, and my friend told me to get under someone, I need to get over someone, or something like that. Okay, sure. Okay, Kevin, you got this. To get over someone, you need to get under someone. To get over someone. Dude, what the hell are you doing? Hey man, this isn't working. I'm not getting over my ex. Kevin, that is not what I meant. Anyways, can you mount me, bro? Yeah, that's no problem. I'm down to give you a bro job any day. All jokes aside, in my 20s, I tried the friends with benefits thing, and honestly, it made me a little bit more confused. I didn't go on a spree and try hooking up with the girls left and right, but I did it a few times. And even worse, often in these situations, I would catch feelings and end up getting hurt. While I didn't sleep with 10 women just to get over the one, I couldn't imagine a situation where I would my brains out and going balls deep was going to help me feel better. Never mind, I can't see that being healthy for society, leaving an endless trail of women burned by a bunch of boys. So if focusing on myself and going balls deep didn't help, what do you do then? How do you go through the path of recovery and making your relationships a lot better? If you feel this way, you're not alone. Maybe you're wondering, where did these beliefs begin? Can you change these beliefs? Should you go monk mode and suppress your feelings? And is there a difference between getting over breakup, sleeping with 10 women versus 11 women? Just kidding about the last one. But the most important question is, what does focusing on you really look like so that you can have better relationships? We're going to be diving into all these topics today. And of course, your boy's going to leave timestamps below, just in case you need to refer back to an original part. Step 1, figure out your attachment style. How loved or unloved we feel as children deeply affects the formation of our self-esteem and self-acceptance. It shapes how we seek love and whether we feel part of life or more like an outsider, unknown. So, do you know what your attachment style is? I remember the early days of the internet where I remember we used to send quizzes to each other and surveys via AIM just to figure out more about each other. If you know what AIM is, that means you're old. And while we're not using screen names like Asian Rice Boy 88 or Asian Baby Girl and sending "What Pokemon are you?" quizzes, right? Some of my closest friends to this day, we send each other different tests to just understand ourselves a lot better. Some of my favorite quizzes include StrengthsFinder 2.0, but it wasn't until my former or retired ABG friend, who's not really retired, Athena, she sent me this quiz on attachment styles during my recent breakup. And this is when I started understanding this is why I'm so up. So if you're like me and you have no idea what an attachment style is, here is what it is. It's this. Attachment is an emotional bond that forms in early childhood when we're 10 to 20 months old based on our parents' behavior. Unconscious patterns become set in place by the time we're about 2 years old. Our attachment style is at the core of how we form adult relationships, whether they're romantic or friendships. In terms of different attachment styles, there's 4 different types. There's the first one, anxious preoccupied. This is when you're dependent on others for self-worth or preoccupied with relationships. The second one is dismissive avoidant, strongly independent, avoidant, and downplays importance of relationships. The third one is fearful avoidant, fear of intimacy, socially avoidant. And then there's the fourth one that we all strive to be, secure, comfortable with intimacy and autonomy. Out of all these, fearful avoidant is the hardest to deal with because they have negative association with their self and negative association of their partner as well. So how do you know which attachment style is you? Believe it or not, there's actually a test, which I'll share at the end of this video and put in the links below. And it was pretty cool because it described me to the T. Let's take a look at it. When I took the test, it showed that I was dismissive avoidant, meaning I avoid being emotionally intimate with others and stay distant and try to pull away. Ironically, even though I am very open on my Instagram and some of these videos about opening up, I avoid opening up to others and sharing my real thoughts with my partner. I also see myself as self-sufficient as a mask, and I rely on myself to avoid relying on to others, which is so me. What was also really cool about this quiz was that it really broke down my relationship with my parents based off the 5 childhood conditions that they have in the exam. And it made so much sense to me. My mom, she was always there for me. She loved me. She was my secure relationship in my life. And honestly, I could have never asked for a more supportive person and loving mom. But as great as my mom was, looking back, I realized all boys, they need strong male role models to teach us how to be men. Women cannot teach us how to be men. My father, on the other hand, never supported me. I was always on my toes, when he was gonna blow up on me. And sometimes I would just be at home just wondering, man, I can't do anything right. I'm gonna get yelled at for pushing a carriage the wrong way, or even the way that I would eat my meal at the dinner table. I just remember how I just constantly felt never good enough. And as I got older, things actually got so bad to the point where we almost didn't talk for a whole entire year during my freshman year of undergrad. And I remember my relationship with my father and even some of my experiences with, my ex-girlfriends, they started bleeding into my relationship beliefs. When I love people, they don't love me back. When I love people, they hurt and leave me. But have you ever felt this way where you're just tired of living this way? You want to make a change. You want to make a difference. And you know that this relationship is holding you back from all your other relationships. This was my relationship with my dad. And at the end of 2017, something shifted. I decided to focus and invest the time to repair my relationship with my dad. I went to this hippie EQ seminar. I'm bawling my eyes out. And having this experience, realizing I don't have my dad forever. It all started with opening up with him and shooting him the most awkward phone call ever. And I remember saying something like this: "Hey dad, this is super awkward, but this is important to me and it's been on my mind for a while now. I know that we've always fought, we've always had our differences, but I want to change that for the better. I don't know how much longer I have with you, but going forward, I just want to have a better, loving relationship with you. I love you, Dad." And it started with that. And after 29 years, my dad and I had a loving relationship. And it started with me being the secure person in the relationship. And he provided that secure relationship back. I mean, here's kind of a screenshot of our last conversation. At the time, I was actually in the middle of a career change, and he just supported me. I told him that I didn't want to do pharmacy anymore, and he told me, "We are with you in every way. Stay positive. I've been there. Love you." And then I told my dad, "That means the world to me." He responded, "You are strong, you're talented and connected. Just come to us to talk or anything." But this was super short-lived. My dad, he actually passed away a month later. And again, I felt alone. I felt this resentment. I felt upset and angry and asking the universe or a higher being, asking myself, why couldn't I just have my dad a bit longer? Why did he leave as soon as I felt like we were connecting more, as soon as we had a better relationship? And then it just reinforced the thought of when I let people love me, they leave me. And it felt stronger than ever. Even though it wasn't really my father's choice to leave this earth, I felt this deep anger deep down inside. Frustrated, I actually distanced and closed myself off. It wasn't fair to my partner at the time, and I realized that. But emotionally, I just didn't want to feel hurt or abandoned again, especially with my romantic life, which leads into the second step. Step 2, embrace the courage of vulnerability. The courage to be vulnerable is not about winning or losing. It's about the courage to show up when you can't predict or control the outcome. Brene Brown. I can't remember where I read this, but I read somewhere that being loved arouses anxiety because it threatens long-standing psychological defenses formed in early in life in relationship to emotional pain and rejection, therefore leaving a person more vulnerable. And for some reason, this quote really resonated with me because there'd be some woman that would come into my life and would share unconditional love, but I would push her away. And I just remember all the anxiety, all the stress I felt during this period of time. I went years back and forth with women, telling myself I wasn't ready for commitment, that I needed to work and prioritize my business first so I could take care of my partner and my future family. I always reemphasized that I wasn't ready. So as a result, I ended up in a lot of situationships. And the funny part about this period of my life was that the less I tried, the more women would kind of come to me as well. It was really interesting. Compared to my early years, I actually used to get friend zoned all the time. It was so bad that my college nickname was friend zone at the time because I couldn't get girls. And I felt like I was hopeless. And later when I focused on myself, I wasn't playing hard to get or trying to manipulate women. It was actually because I really wanted to focus on myself at the time. But as much as I wanted to distance myself, I'm human. And it's human nature to seek love. After all, it's the third rung on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That pyramid thing that's not a multi-level marketing scheme. It's actually when you open up a social psychology textbook, everyone sees it. And so recently I opened up my heart again. I came to the conclusion that, things will never get better with my romantic life if I don't lead with vulnerability. I did all this only to get crushed with disappointment. I'm laughing right now, but it really sucked a lot. And maybe it was the wrong person or the wrong timing. Who knows? Could have been a lot of different factors. But that's the price of vulnerability that very few people actually talk about. Vulnerability leaves you, vulnerable. You're open to getting hurt. And when you fall flat on your ass or your face, it's not the best feeling in the world. And as I was going through this recent heartache, I started reflecting. I realized somewhere along the path, I lost myself. I compromised on my own self-worth. And despite the work that I put in, I fell in the trap of nice guy syndrome all over again. So you might be asking, what is nice guy syndrome? In Robert Glover's book again, he explains nice guy syndrome as this. Nice guy syndrome represents a belief that if nice guys are good, they will be loved, get their needs met, and live a problem-free life. When this life strategy fails to produce the desired results, as it often does, nice guys usually just try harder doing more of the same. Robert Glover. And when I was younger, I fell into this trap a lot. I would do anything for a girl. I remember this one time, I was probably like 21, 22, and I thought I found the love of my life in Hong Kong, and I was so willing to pack my bags up and go there. While I wish this played out like the movies and maybe I'm a hopeless romantic, what this was really doing was screaming, I don't know my worth. I'm willing to tolerate bullshit and compromise my own values just to people please. It comes from a place of scarcity where you're telling yourself that there's no other women that would better align with my values. And you're constantly fighting for, sacrificing your own self-beliefs and losing yourself in the process, like I did. And trust fam, that shit is not sexy. And what Robert Glover's book really taught me was that I didn't realize at the time when I was a lot younger, but it's manipulative and it's not authentic to ourselves. And it's not treating ourselves with the absolute respect. And so when I recognized in myself more recently, I was so frustrated at the comeback of nice guy syndrome. And the emotional storm came back with a vengeance. Here were some of my thoughts. I'm not good enough for love. I'm unlovable. People who love me will end up hurting and leaving me. In my 20s, I'd probably be driving in my car listening to R&B and listening to breakup tracks. But in my 30s, I try to remind myself I'm a lot wiser. I try to remind myself that I am not my thoughts and feelings. And that's something really important to realize. If you ever dived into meditation or Buddhist philosophy, we're all often told to take a look at things as an observer effect. So I started noticing these feelings, sitting in them, and not gonna lie, it's painful as but it's always easier to distract yourself with friends, music, clubbing, or one of my favorite things, work. And it wasn't until I read this book called Recovery where it really emphasized that point where I was just so addicted to not sitting in these feelings like most men actually are. And that's where we get termed emotionally unavailable, because we're so logic head all the time. I remember in the past, I would do these things. I had to go out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, just to see my friends and chase girls. Even though I was horrible at it, I would drown myself on top of that with work by starting a business, especially when I moved to LA. What I didn't realize at the time was that I was trying to distract or numb myself from the pain, but obviously doing more of that was not helping my situation. So what is the solution? And it was through this book called Recovery, where I was reading Russell Brand's book, and he mentioned this really great quote: pain is a signal. It's some aspect of us that is beyond our somewhat narrow conception of self-communicating. A pain in the leg means don't put pressure on the leg. A pain in the mind means change the way you live. And I want you to think about it for a second. So often when we feel pain, we just want to get rid of the pain right away, but it's not solving the root problem. And that's what silence helps us do. And so the first step of getting to a place of feeling better, feeling happier, isn't asking yourself, how do I make this pain go away? How can I distract myself? But the first step is asking a better question. Asking, what are my emotions trying to communicate with me? And I know the logical masculine side of me comes out and is like, well, what do I do? How do I go about figuring out what change to actually make? Well, it's simpler than you think. Let's move on to step 3. Step 3, silence is the real solution. Spending extended periods of time alone also helps recovering nice guys face their number one fear, loneliness and isolation. When the nice guy discovers that spending time alone doesn't kill him, he may also realize that he doesn't have to stay in bad relationships, tolerate intolerable people, or manipulate people to try to get his needs met. Robert Glover. Okay, I can definitely relate to this quote because I'm in Las Vegas and I don't have a lot of friends. I don't have a lot of my old connections. I'm pretty much out here alone. And real talk, silence and spending time alone in Vegas sometimes really sucks. I feel lonely. I feel like I'm by myself. And I personally hate the feeling of being alone. When I left LA, I felt like I left my friends behind, my family behind, everything that I built over the last 8 years behind as well. What once was dinner with my friends slowly became table for one by myself. Instead of chatting the night away, chopping it up with my friends, instead of going out for ratchet nights in K-Town, I actually found a lot of my Friday and Saturday nights home alone by myself. And when I could just hit up a friend, ask him to chop it up at a coffee shop, I missed those deep conversations and interactions like I used to that I didn't have here in Vegas. While Zoom chats and calls are really great, the thing is, nothing replaces physical human interaction. And I think that's something that we figured out during the whole pandemic situation as well. But while all this is really painful, I know that deep down inside, this is necessary for my growth. I need to do this for not what's best for other people, but for what's best for myself. And I feel that in my gut, truly. Sometimes I wish I could say I was a lot happier. I wish I could say I had M's on my bank account. I wish I could buy that i8 that I totally shit on all my videos. But the truth is, it hasn't done any of those things. In fact, being alone, being in silence made me feel a lot worse. And when I first started sitting in silence, the obvious logical question comes up. Why not do something about it if you're hurting or you're in pain? And it goes back to allowing yourself to discover what the root cause is rather than distracting yourself with all the environmental things around you, your old habits that were feeding into these unhealthy beliefs. It reminds me of the great jiu-jitsu legend Rickson Gracie when his son Rickson was murdered. Here's a passage from his book. I felt that by suppressing my emotions, I would be creating a mask that might make me look strong, but would have just made me numb inside. Instead, I thought that it was important to be fragile and let myself feel whatever pain, doubt, loss, weakness, and emptiness I needed to feel, to be honest enough to say, I don't know what to do. And what was so beautiful about this is later in the chapter, Hickson talks about his realization, being able to sit in silence. One day, I remembered something that my dad always used to say: nothing can be 100% positive or 100% negative. I spent a long time trying to find something positive that I could take away from this tragedy. After much meditation, I realized that I never really valued time. I thought that I controlled time and could put things off, like talking to my son, until later. After Hoxton's departure, I understood that there is no tomorrow, because life can change forever in a blink of an eye. I needed to do my best every day because it might be my last. I no longer had the luxury of wasted time. This is from Rickson Gracie, one of the goats of jiu-jitsu and a jiu-jitsu legend. As masculine as he is, as much leadership he had allowed him to be a better man by sitting in silence and really having a strong takeaway. And what no one talks about in terms of silence is that the truth is, silence allows us to emotionally process what's going on, discover the real root problem. I mean, have you ever randomly just rushed into a solution without thinking it through? What I realized personally is that silence allows us to gain those deeper insights that we would have never seen before if we just rushed into something. The most important thing is that silence reminds me that I am not my thoughts and feelings. I'm able to detach from it, understand it, and really have an identity outside of those. And as I sat in silence with my recent heartbreak, I asked the same questions with Hickson. Started asking myself, what if all this was a gift? What if universe, God, or higher power is allowing me to work through the process of discovering my values and figuring out what I want right now in this moment for the rest of my life? So you might be asking, what did I realize? This is what focusing on yourself really means. New beginnings are often disguised as painful endings, Lao Tzu. In silence, I realized that while I wish I was happier, the truth is I feel a lot worse. My heart aches. I still feel lonelier than ever. As mentioned earlier, it's necessary for my growth. And the truth is, it's always easier to distract myself, not think about it, or go under someone to just forget about the whole situation altogether. But these are the things that are masking the underlying problem of emotionally processing it. After going through this process, the biggest thing I'm most proud of is allowing myself to pursue the more difficult path of prioritizing myself and my needs for once in my life. Respecting myself, respecting my needs, putting myself as a priority. That's something I never did as a child and something I want to do a lot more going forward. How do I have the ability to help others if I can't really even help myself? You know, what was really interesting was that I was planning out this video and I was really stuck. I was in the moment of sitting in this pain. I was like, I don't see an end. I don't know when this pain will ever stop. And that's when I consulted my really close friend and neurohacking coach, Dr. Eugene Choi, and he opened my eyes about the recovery process of what it really looks like during our coaching session. Here's a snippet from our coaching session, and if you want to skip it, I'll leave a timestamp up below too.
And what if that was just an opportunity for you to process things that were always there? Imagine you're talking to 12-year-old Kevin, 14-year-old Kevin, 16-year-old Kevin. It's like, yeah, you know what? That sucks. And honestly, she's not the reason you're unhappy. It's because you don't feel good enough right now. And I want to show you why this isn't true. Right? You're working yourself. You're talking to yourself more at a emotionally connected level. Because then 12-year-old Kevin can finally be like, all right, I'm ready to let go of this. Because I can see what you're saying is actually true. What I thought was true is untrue. She was never the source of our happiness. The only reason I thought it was because of what I might have believed as a kid was that a romantic partner is meant to make you happy. When the truth is you always had the decision to be happy or not. You see what I'm saying? Anything when it's romantic relationships is tough because there's a lot of meanings that get attached to it, right? Romantic relationships. Because the more you go down that path as you explore it, there's going to come a point where you realize what's true. Which is the most you can do is to show up fully yourself, authentically. Whatever happens, happens. But the mode you go into, if this doesn't happen, then it means that. Then you know it actually is a meaning that you've given relationships, right? The meaning behind relationships. Whether it's there exists this thing as a perfect partner that can make you happy. The moment you step into that reality, boom, primal state. I gotta fight for this thing that doesn't exist. I got to fight for this thing where I can place 100% responsibility to somebody else for my happiness so that whenever I'm unhappy, I have someone to blame at least and not have to take ownership of over myself. And that's when Dr. Joe Dispenza asked a really powerful question because someone asked him that question, right? Like I share that story a lot. It's like, how do I find the perfect partner? And he knew that was a survival state question. Because what that person's hoping for is someone that can make them happy, that he can place the responsibility to someone else. And he asked that question, would you go out with you? And that's what you've been doing, is you're starting to see what's true. You're breaking out of the matrix. It's like, whoa, I'm feeling this really deep sense of loneliness. I can't help but look to the left and right of me when I'm in the theater. But then now you're able to build more awareness and be like, well, what's that about? It's like, oh, there you are, 10-year-old Kevin, right? How's it going, man? It's been a while.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been you this whole time, huh? It's like, what's going on? Let me hear you out. And then you're able to process. That's when 10-year-old Kevin's thinking thoughts like, oh, because I don't have her, this means I'm going to be unhappy, right? Like a teenage version talking, right? And you're able to be like, let me share some truth with you right now, because that's what I've been doing these days, right? You're able to have that talk with yourself. Because you've already been doing it. Look at these boundaries you've been setting. And you're inviting these younger versions of yourself to join the adventure, join the journey, join the present moment. And that's when everything changes. Anyway, you've been doing a phenomenal job, dude. You know, I just really want to affirm and commend that. Like, from the outside in, there's been tremendous growth. Like, you're one of the people that show up so, like the way you show up is real, dude. Like, not a lot of people are emotionally ready for that. You went into the trenches and you're coming out stronger. Like the things you've done that I think you've acknowledged that you never would have done before. Setting boundaries, right? Showing up vulnerably. Searching for truth, what's actually true versus untrue. Willing to question your reality on what you think might be true in terms of a limiting belief. This is a season of transformation. Your old self is starting to, the old limiting beliefs are starting to die. I think I shared that story with you, how caterpillars turn into butterflies, right? They literally eat themselves alive. Kind of what it feels like is happening for you. You're letting all these old beliefs die so that you can step into this new chapter. You can trust it. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. You can experience it for yourself. Just know that you're not alone on this journey. You know where to reach me.
What I've realized through going through the recovery process, which I'm still in the middle of, is that recovering from a breakup isn't about hating your ex. It has nothing to do with your ex. It's coming to terms with that one chapter of your life is over. that you just stop obsessing over your ex and that you have space in your mind back as well. More importantly, it's the lessons from these relationships that I can carry on into how I treat myself better and my future partner, whoever it is. And the most important lesson that I learned from my 15 years of failed or relationship experience that I had is that my present self, it needs to be the secure partner for not only my romantic partner, for my platonic friends, but also my anxious past self. I'm so guilty of it. I sometimes act very anxious toward myself. I try to seek validation through others. I always doubt my own abilities. And it wasn't until I read this Instagram post by The Secure Relationship, really great channel. So whenever I'm feeling down or anxious about a situation, I say, it makes so much sense to me that you'd be feeling this way right now. I'm here with you. I'm not sure how we're gonna work through this, but right now, I just wanna be here to comfort you. Or if I'm feeling super avoidant, I like to tell myself, hey, I really appreciate the way that you put so much effort in keeping things together. I see that's how one of your ways to keep everything going, and I feel the love in that. Imagine telling your hurt past self this. How would that change your relationship? And most importantly, as I'm going through this video, if you're an ex or former partner watching this and you made it to end, I just want to say thank you. Maybe we still talk, maybe we don't, but either way, I just want to thank you for the lessons I've learned from our time together. I wouldn't be here where I am with my recovery without you. So thank you. And if you're a viewer, you want the links for the resources, the books, even Eugene's neurohacking sessions, check the description. And also, if you want my weekly tips and resources and want to hear my inner musings on self-development for entrepreneurship, you can sign up for my weekly email newsletter at refugiehustle.com/join. And finally, I'd love to kind of hear from you in the comments. What are some of your relationship beliefs? Fill in the blanks like my friend told me. What are the first thoughts that come to your mind? When I love people, they blank. When I let people love me, they blank. Anyways, I'm Kevin Yee. Stay rebellious, stay authentic, stay compassionate. Peace.